Now, Greg Stoker, activist, veteran, host of Colonial Outcasts, podcast and State of Play on Mint Press News, is always a popular guest here on the mother of all talk shows. And he's back. Greg, welcome back to the show. You are at sea, I'm guessing. You probably don't want to tell me where, but give us some colour as to what the mood is like on the rolling wave with the armada of goodwill that is headed towards Gaza.
Well, we're just ready to get this thing started. This has been a large logistical undertaking from the beginning. I came into it last minute, about a week before, to kind of come up with and lead a boat of veterans across and with this flotilla. So this is kind of what we're looking at. We're about day 3. We've had some initial complications, which was to be expected. You know, we are a humanitarian mission attempting to pass a military blockade and deliver life-saving aid to a beleaguered population, and we are doing what our governments should be doing, but cannot for a myriad reasons. So yes, we had some a rocky start, but we are pushing forward, and we're not going to be deterred when Itamar Ben-Givr says, this time, all the activists attached to the flotilla will go into terror prisons, and we will detain and capture their ships and use it to mobilize a new police force. And I will say to the minister that he is the only person in this conversation who has been convicted of terrorism. And if you want to turn these boats into a police force, please turn these boats into a police force. They're really good for slow chases, and at least the motors are functional.
Now look, Greg, you say veterans. Which armies are the veterans drawn from, if you can say?
So right now, our boat is just 8 U.S. military veterans from different branches and different modes of service. We have come together to use our status in our grotesquely militarized society to spread awareness, not just for the Palestinian cause, but to make it more intersectional. We are in a unique position, I believe, to tailor our messaging to demonstrate to the American population, the citizens of the imperial core, that whatever violence we allow or perpetrate overseas, whatever forms of oppression or repression that we develop on people in the global south, on the periphery, almost always are immediately used on us, American citizens. So right now, people are concerned about if we accept the premise that fascism is being solidified in Washington, D.C., well, what is the current extrajudicial police force? It's ICE. The same kind of predictive policing models that are used to enforce occupation and apartheid in the West Bank, the same targeting models developed by Palantir in the Palestine laboratory of Gaza are at your local police department. So we want to expand the pro-Palestine movement into a global movement that encompasses all these intersectional issues, because that is the only way forward. As these techno-feudal oligarchs tighten the screws on power, the only thing that can resist them is the people united. And that's kind of what our position is on the flotilla. And it's also, as veterans, we have a lot of social and cultural capital. We add an extra layer of security to the fleet because it's bad PR to drop, a Hellfire missile on a boat full of U.S. veterans. I'm not saying that they're beyond it, because they're an absolute rogue actor right now, and we have no idea what they're going to do. But a part of our job is to wage a information war against Israeli military propaganda to make the most violent outcomes politically non-viable by simply calling them out before they happen. So we'll be doing threat assessments, risk assessments about how they will respond to this flotilla. It's up to beyond 50 ships right now. Some are going to fall out en route. Obviously, I'll be happy with 25 if they make it, but the Israeli Navy is still very small, and they have never had to conduct a naval interdiction like this before. They only have 60 vessels in their entire fleet. 5 are submarines. Most are tasked out to the Persian Gulf to conduct signal intelligence reconnaissance on Iran. And a part of their patrol detachment, they only have 45 patrol boats, are out of ILOT. So they're going to try to do a bunch of other stuff before we even get to a naval interdiction. So we're prepared for psychological operations, with their intelligence agents, like calling captains to dissuade them, just like they called journalists in Gaza. We're expecting drone surveillance and harassment, up to parking a naval ship off the formation of the flotilla and like one of their missile cruisers and escorting us in to try to dissuade us from going. But no, we're headed there because they want to enact the final solution in Gaza. And most of us refuse to live in a world where we can witness the annihilation of an entire people and just go to brunch and pretend like whatever our governments allow to happen to Palestinians, or whatever they're willing to do to Palestinians, they're willing to do to you when it becomes politically viable.
Well, to buttress that point, and the one you made earlier about how what is done to others will one day be done to you, your country committed an act of mass murder on the high seas of the Caribbean yesterday. We are told that the people who were murdered were drug dealers, but how can we know that? How can anybody know that? All we've seen is a video of people in a boat that was then eviscerated, and no evidence or flesh remains unburned. Now, if that's the punishment for drugs, assuming that they really were trafficking drugs, and as I say, no evidence for that has been provided, that means it's a capital offence now, being involved in drugs in the United States. That'll come as a bit of an unpleasant surprise in some quarters.
Right. Over the past 2 years, the laws of war and international law have kind of been absolutely eroded. When I was in special operations, serving as I'm a reformed stormtrooper now, but at least when we did something egregious, we actually published who was killed. We'd have an entire casualty roll-up. We'd have SSC, sensitive site exploitation, evidence to present it. Since Israel has been allowed to, as a matter of state policy, bomb hospitals, drop bombs wherever they want in one of the most densely populated places on earth with absolute impunity, well, the laws of war are kind of like actual laws. You're really concerned about what precedents you set and do not set. So now warfare going forward and the impunity with which countries like America can act has been changed forever. So expect more of this going forward, and expect it on our own citizens eventually.
Now, finally, speaking of your government, have they an official stance as to your participation in the flotilla? Do their diplomats know you're there? And will they be looking out for you should the worst occur?
Well, seeing that our main political liaison to the Israeli government is the Christian evangelical Zionist Mike Huckabee, I'd say that the level of engagement is pretty small. We were buzzed by a couple drones last night, right out of our second night, right out of port. And they could have been Spanish Coast Guard. I don't think it was like an Israeli asset at all. But, we've drawn a lot of global attention, and Israel does not want to deal with this flotilla right now. So they're in a bad PR position. A lot of their rhetoric and their Hezbollah is just absolutely failing. It's played out. So what they're trying to do right now is just hope this civilian endeavor, which is a large-scale naval operation, fails before we even get to Tunis. And after that, after we keep moving past, they'll escalate. But in terms of U.S. diplomatic statements, no, we have support systems in place that if we get interdicted or if anything happens to us, our congressmen, every U.S. citizen on the flotilla has illegal support. Every U.S. citizen has email distros, a legion of people that are going to be calling local representatives, and also parallel actions with different activist groups within the U.S. in solidarity with this flotilla. So we want this to be like a transnational thing. 44 different countries are involved, and people and support groups within those countries in support of the flotilla are also there. So we kind of want to make this a transnational thing and come back to the continental U.S. as well.
Lastly, Greg, and I'm grateful for your time. You've got many calls upon it, I know. The president himself, Trump, said the day before yesterday, when people thought he was dead, that the Israel lobby he's never seen anything like the Israel lobby. The most powerful lobby there has ever been in the United States. I mean, I wasn't sure if he was deploring it or lauding it, but he described it as essentially a controlling force, as essentially an unstoppable, irresistible force. But he went on to say that it isn't now that Israel's grip on the American political system has begun to weaken, thanks to the activities of people like you and the others on the Flotilla, and those of us who around the world have been in solidarity with Palestine for so long. It seems to me that we are winning, and President Trump says we are winning, because of course if Israel's support is down, that's good news for the Palestinians, isn't it?
It is, but they're not the only bipartisan lobby that's a part of this. We talk about powerful lobbies. It's not just the military-industrial complex. Let's talk about the real estate lobby. Even if AIPAC was smashed into dust and Christians United for Israel and all these other lobbying groups, Trump is still a real estate developer. Steve Witkoff, his special envoy to the Middle East, is a real estate developer. Kamala Harris, the first speaking event she did after her failed election bid was at the Australian Realtors Conference. Gaza is a piece of real estate, and it's more lucrative for Western capitalist interests to demolish it and build the new Dubai or Shanghai or Gaza-Lago, whatever they want to call it. This would still be an issue, even if the Zionist lobby didn't have a grip on politics, because this is our economic system. This is what it demands. Israel, while unprecedented as a colony with regards to how much influence it has on the empire, it's still an extension of the U.S. empire to destabilize the region, wage adventurous wars to carve up the Middle East.
Have we lost Greg? Well, Godspeed and bon voyage to you, Greg Stoker. A great interview, even if cut abruptly short.